It is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Welcome to Fish Unfiltered. My name is Azout, joined as always by Mr. Kevin Barral and Ely Sussman. We've got a very special guest for you guys today, the reigning National League Manager of the Year, Marlins skipper, Skip Schumaker. Skip, so thanks so much for taking the time, man. How's it going?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Of course. Well, before we get into it, Skip, you guys were just on the West Coast, went to Arizona, then to Southern California. So I imagine you're able to see some family, catch up with the offsprings. How were they all doing?
The offsprings. Yeah. Yeah, good. Everyone's doing great. Obviously, it was good to be back on the West Coast. My son won MVP, the Trinity League, so that was really cool. Got
Nice.
to celebrate that with him. Trinity League is a really stacked high school league. They had, the first or the last sophomore to win MVP there was Royce Lewis, and then the one before that was Austin Hedges. So it's a really good division. So super proud of him. And then saw my daughter play soccer. She's travel soccer. So always great to see her play and do her thing. And then, be a dad and husband is what I'm most proud of. So always good to reconnect out there.
Right. That's awesome. I'm curious, Skip, just, as a major league manager with the family part of it, whether the team is, going through a rough stretch or they're winning a lot of games, do they treat you any differently? Do they walk on eggshells maybe if the team is maybe not doing so well on a 5-game losing streak or something like that?
My kids?
The wife, kids, anyone in the family?
No. I've been lucky to be here for, this is my 23rd season. 18th professionally, so they kind of know the life, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and I don't. Same thing as a manager, I do it as a parent when they play games, and I don't stress over one win, one loss, 5 wins, five losses. I'm kind of even keeled, and just try to be the same person every single day. Especially to them, the last thing you want to do is take the game home with you.
Right.
I never want to do that to them as a player and as a manager. It's my job, but it's, they mean more to me than a win or a loss.
We appreciate your time, Skip, coming on here. Just on Tuesday, the Marlins designate Avi García for assignment. He was, of course, around the team last year. Entering this year, he had a pretty clear role coming into the season. He was starting against lefty pitching, playing right field, and he was rehabbing from an injury, thought to be on his way back. I think people are just wondering about the timing of it and your understanding about why it is that this was the moment to move on from a guy that entering the season seemed to have this role and was almost on his way back to being ready to play again.
Since I've been here, Avi has been great to me. So I don't know what, the past or, Marlins fans or you guys or whatever, but to me, and that's how I can judge people, is how they treat me and their teammates around this clubhouse and staff. He was great. So I don't have a negative thing to say about his work ethic, his preparation, coming in, playing the right way, playing as hard as he could when healthy. The guy was hurt, and he was hurt a lot. He was hurt a lot last year. And then coming into the season, we had a platoon situation with him and Sanchez. Thought it was going to be the right move for him. And, honestly, when I was in St. Louis, we had a platoon situation with Albert Pujols too. So this is not like a crazy situation, but the talk was, and not that he's Albert, but the talk was, play yourself into an everyday role. Prove that you can do this. Because I got no problem with guys coming in as a platoon situation and then being an everyday guy. That's totally okay with me. And so he, to his credit, he wasn't happy about the conversation early on about the platoon, but he understood it and was going to do the best he could coming off the bench for the first time in his career against a pinch hit, being a pinch hitter against a tough lefty in the 7th inning or whatever it was. And he did the best he could. And then he got hurt again, 20 games in or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So working his way back up, it just felt like the situation was where there's some younger guys that we're going to kind of give a shot to them, and Dave Myers and a couple other guys that potentially could come up. And it felt like it was just the time was the timing of it was, where we're at in the season. And the record's the record. I get it, but I felt like the management felt like it was time to see what other guys could do, and unfortunately it's had a DFA. Avi, never an easy conversation, especially a guy that I don't care. I know what the fans think or whatever. I liked him. The production's the production, but I liked him as a person, and he was good to me. And so those are always not easy conversations. However, he played 10 years in the big leagues. I don't know if he's done or not yet. We'll see what happens. But it's been a really good career overall for Avi García.
Being a second-year manager, Skip, there's obviously still some things that you experienced for the first time. And just to go back to the Luis Arraez trade, when you find that out and just seeing, it's still somewhat early in the season to see that the team is going in a certain direction, how did you sort of take that news, being in that situation for the first time? And what's the message to the guys when they see that move?
Yeah, it was difficult. You never want to, you never want to start the season like how we did. It was not an ideal start. But you feel like you had 162, right? And so there's time, and you always feel that as a manager that, it just takes, one big hit or one shutout, and you can start a winning streak, and then you get hot, and then where the National League is. It's super competitive, but there's only like 3 or 4 teams that have kind of separated themselves, right? So very similar to last year, right? There's like some really good teams, and then kind of everybody else trying to get into that third wild card or whatever you want to call it, third spot. And so you always feel like you're in it early until it gets to, August and September. And then there's some realistic expectations, right? So when that happens, first of all, I can't tell you a bad thing about Arraez. He was my favorite player. I shouldn't say my favorite player, but one of my favorite players that I've coached at any level, any organization, or even as a player, been around. I couldn't believe how positive he was every single day. Like, it didn't make sense how you could be that positive, that good of a teammate every single day. I mean, it was real. It was not fake. I guess it's easier when you're hitting 350 every day. But that's who he was. He was a hard worker. He influenced that clubhouse as positive as I could ever have hoped for, especially as a rookie manager in my seat. Like, he was incredible. So when you get the news, it's not easy, but you don't play GM. That's not what I ever wanted to do. That's not what I'm going to do. So the decision is the decision, and where they want to go organization-wise is, was going to move on from Louis and get some prospects that they think are going to help the organization in the future. And that's kind of the route you go. And I think the main thing for me is trying not to lose that clubhouse, because I'm not going to, there's a shock factor when it happens. And that's okay the first day or two. And it stings a little bit as a staff, probably even in the front office, inside that clubhouse. But I've said it before, man, the game moves on, and you have to keep going. These guys still have careers. We still have a job to do. We still have to try to win games. I still talk to Louis almost every day, text message or whatever. Because I think, this game's about relationships, and we're going to be friends, a long time after this thing. And when I'm out of here and done with the game, we'll still be friends. So, it hurt initially. But I think, again, we have a job to do, and we have to still go out and win games and try to get these players better.
Yeah, Skip, Peter Bendix joins this organization first year. Just what were the conversations with you guys, from what you could share during the offseason? Would you guys say you were, on the same page and what this season would kind of look like?
Well, I don't think we anticipated starting out the way we started. So, no, we didn't have that conversation that, let's try to lose the first how many games. So, no, that definitely was not part of the equation. There was a lot of just building relationship conversation. So it wasn't a lot of, players or, not to get into too many personal conversations, but there's a lot of just relationships, a lot of hirings, a lot of conversation with new guys that are coming in, as far as the front office. And and just trying to, kind of figure out, each other, honestly. As far as like, the direction or, the direction of the organization, you've heard Peter many times say one eye on the future, one eye on this team, or vice versa. And I think that's real. I think he's trying to do the best he can for what's right for this organization for this year and the future. And you can see what he's doing, which he's done some really good acquiring some really good players in like Declan Cronin and Fauché and some guys that, you can see what he does that he's really good at acquiring some guys that maybe some guys didn't really think they were, major league ready yet or whatever, that have been really valuable for us. And then he's traded some guys that he feels like, could help the organization in the future. So I think our conversations haven't changed. If, I'm trying to win. So that's definitely what is on my plate every day. Whatever, the organization wants to do as far as the future, that's up to them. That's not part of my conversations. It's our staff is trying to win every day with the roster that we have, which we feel like is good enough to compete every night.
Yeah, you mentioned the importance of relationships and some of those new hires, and some of those new hires included Vinesh, Kapler, Rachel Balkovich. I'm curious, as the manager, because obviously we're not in that organization. I'm just curious what that relationship is like with some of those assistant GMs and directors of player development, et cetera.
Yeah, I think alignment is key. I went to the DR on the off day 2 days ago or whatever it was. Me and Pipe went there and saw the opening ceremony, saw the opening day ceremonies and game. Met the new director down there, Jay, and who was fantastic. I feel like it starts from the top down and also bottom up. I think it's both. That's what alignment looks like, and feel like Rachel's doing everything she can to figure out exactly how to get these players better and to make them big leaguers. And it starts with not only the guys down there, but there's going to be probably a different. Well, I know there's a different draft process that's being implemented. So getting guys in the system and then developing them is going to be the lifeline and the bloodline of this organization. Trying to figure out how to get major leaguers down below up here. Develop major leaguers down below and get them up here. So I think they're going to try different things, new things, think outside the box. A lot of conversations I've had with them have been, they're going to be trying new things to see if it works down there. And if it does or not, then that's the thing about the minor leagues is you can adjust down there with some ideas. If it doesn't work, then you adjust. It's tough to do that up here because it hurts you, and every win and loss matters. So you can do stuff like that down there. But I think, Rachel has hit the ground running and is trying to do everything she can with different hiring, different technology being implemented down there. And yeah, I think that a lot of the coaches and coordinators are trying to be aligned with her and being on the same page. And anybody coming in new is going to be, tough to, making sure that you're working together and getting on the same page. And I think that is happening, which is good. And then see where it takes us. But I don't think it's going to happen overnight, right? Like there's a lot of work to do. And I think, Rachel is a really good hire, and she's going to do really good things for this organization.
At MPT College Consulting, they pride themselves on helping clients navigate the college application process. This includes preparation for standardized testing, guidance through high school, assistance with essays and applications, and choosing the right college. Their work is always geared toward the specific needs of the individual client as they strive to make this process as stress-free for the family as possible. Visit them at mptcollegeconsulting.com to learn more about their services and schedule a free consultation.
Skip, there are a ton of people outside of the clubhouse that think they can do your job, that think they can be a major league manager from afar based on in the media and in fans. And I'm sure you hear or see a lot of those suggestions, when things are going well, when things are going poorly, almost every single day because of every decision that you have to make in front of everybody's view. I'm wondering if quietly you've ever seen an idea floated or somebody's ever bugged you with something and you've actually implemented it, whether even if it's somebody that hasn't been a manager before or who doesn't know what they're talking about. Is there any time where that surrounding noise actually leads to some good ideas that make the team better?
No. So I hate to be blunt, but if it's a, fan Twitter, that type, no, I don't really write in my notebook of, certain suggestions, some from DMs or whatever. So no, that doesn't happen if that's what you're asking. But listen, I'm open to anything. I'm trying to get it right. I've told you this before. I don't believe I have all the answers. I'm not naive. There's a lot of things that I am missing that I'm trying to figure out still. I think that's why you have a really good coaching staff. That's why you ask analytics of what's going on. What am I missing? I have a meeting almost every day with analytics trying to figure out what I should be doing. Am I missing anything from the last game? Was there a matchup that, number of things. I've answered fans before on certain things, sure. Of like, what were you thinking or whatever. I don't answer every one of them. But I do, try to, be as honest as I can with, certain decisions, and not every decision is going to be right. I mean, it's just what it is. And that is this seat. I have to answer when it's good. I definitely have to be held accountable when it's bad. And if I make a bad decision, I will be the first one to tell the players. And I'll be the first one to tell you guys. But usually there's a reason behind it. I just don't flip a coin. I'm pretty prepared. I get here at 11:30 every day for the 7:00 game. I'm trying to figure out tonight's game. And all of my staff is already here. So we're trying to figure out this thing together. And, it's not perfect by any means, but, we try to do our best to get it right.
We look at the starting pitching in the month of May, 5 shutouts. You couldn't ask for it any better. But one of the guys that has really stood out is Ryan Weathers, a guy who you've known since your days in San Diego. Just what has been the biggest improvement you've seen from Weathers from when you were in San Diego up until, today?
Yeah, so probably unfairly, we called up Ryan in 2020. During the COVID year, we had a lot of injuries. Mike Clevenger, we had a lot of guys that got hurt that we needed arms during the COVID season during the playoffs. Ryan stood out during COVID camp. I mean, he was throwing it 98 miles an hour as a 19-year-old, blowing it by some really good players in our COVID camp in San Diego. He was elite. But I think what happened was the league adjusts. And so if you can't throw any secondary, there's not too many major leaguers that can't catch up to a fastball. Like, you didn't get here not being able to hit a fastball. And so I think, the league adjusted, and, he had some growing pains. I mean, he was 21 having growing pains. I mean, it's okay. And 22, I mean, he's so young still when he was going through kind of his growing pains. To his credit, he went home, bought a TrackMan, bought into some of the stuff that Stott was doing. Obviously, he was raised the right way. He went home and grinded through this thing to try to figure out exactly how to become a major league starter, and was able to throw his slider inside the strike zone for strikes. Created a little bit of a sweeping action, which has been, really good pitch for him. Not many guys can hit it when it's inside the strike zone. And the changeup has been really good for strikes during hitters counts, and strike the ball when he needs it. He also has an FU mentality on the mound. Like, he is not scared, and which me, I love. He did a lot of it on his own, but Mel and the staff were also really good for him. I think the main thing though is the willingness to adjust, and not just because you're a top prospect, he didn't think he had it all figured out, and that's huge to be able to do as such a young player, and a top prospect being able to do that screams volumes. I didn't know what I was getting in spring training. I thought he might have been a bullpen guy, maybe a length guy, not even sure. And then he dominated spring training as a starter. Injuries happened. He had an opportunity, and he's taken off.
Just a few more questions for you, Skip, on the topic of starting pitching. Max Meyer has been away for a while, sent down just a few weeks into the season to AAA. He's been pitching once a week down there. Had to limit his workload coming off of surgery, of course. Wanted to work more on his changeup. There were some reasons for it, but it's been a while now, and there seems to be for lack of a better word, a void in the rotation right now behind your top four guys that have been there for most of the season. So what is your understanding about how he's doing down there? We spoke with the AAA broadcaster Scott Kornberg on this podcast last week, and he was really encouraged with where he's at. But when do you think that Max is going to be an option to come back up and rejoin the team?
Yeah, we told him early on in spring training and even in the offseason, more spring training, of kind of what the plan was for him, that, we were going to try to protect him in a sense, coming off of Tommy John, long time since he's pitched, at the major league level, or he needs to be built up and not just at this level, but some real innings. Didn't feel like it was the right move just to throw 170 innings first year in. But I think when he got sent down, he was so good here that it was tough to send him down, and he obviously didn't want to be sent down, rightfully so, because he was doing really well. I think the last start against the Braves was excellent, and so he probably went down there. Can't speak for it. Don't want to speak for him, but almost a lot like Dane Myers when he was sent down out of spring training. He was probably pretty frustrated. And the numbers show when you're not mentally, all in on the decision, that, sometimes it can go backwards. And, but to both their credit, after a couple starts, they figured it out, and got back on track. And Max, the last 3 outings, has been outstanding. I know you'll see him up here, soon. I think it's just a matter of time, but I think you want to be able to manage his innings the correct way, make sure he's healthy, built up the right way for this year and his future. And I think there's been a lot of really good signs with the development of his sinker. His changeup has been really good, and we always know he's had his slider.
Obviously, we do expect to see Max again at some point. Earlier in the pod, you had mentioned, some other guys in the outfield that you might see come up. Who are some close to big league ready guys in the system that you and the organization have kept your eye on, and that fans might get to see, after the trade deadline in August, September?
Yeah, listen, I don't want to speak for Peter. This is Peter. This is not
Right.
me, calling the AAA and calling guys up, right? That's not my job. But Jonah Bride's been hitting the ball as good as anybody in the minor leagues. Not sure what more he has to prove down there. And I think he has done enough to be warranted at least a shot at some point up here. X Edwards has had a long road this year. Poor guy had a tough spring training with the injury, some really weird foot injury infection that he had to get through, and finally feels healthy. I think you see him here at some point. Not sure what more he has to do either, after a really good year last year, and even at this level, really good. So, Mesa's intriguing, of what he's been able to do. So there's guys that are down there that obviously want to be at this level. But I'm not going to tell you exactly who's being called up or, when that's going to happen. That's not my decision. That's not fair to the guys that are up here either. So I think, but those guys are definitely doing enough to be considered and are knocking on the door.
At this stage, is your mind fully made up on being a major league manager in 2025? You're in this situation. You've seen the highs from last year, and you've seen some lows from this year of being in this position, something that was somewhat new to you. And I know you put in a lot of thought before taking this job in the first place as to whether it fit your lifestyle, it fit what you were trying to accomplish. There's a lot of ways to be a baseball man outside of that. And you're in this situation where our understanding, there's nothing locked in with the Marlins beyond this season. Are you going to let things play out a little bit more, or is this everything that you wanted it to be when you became a big league manager for the first time?
Yeah, there's 30 of these jobs. I know that. I'm very grateful that I get to manage the Miami Marlins. I'm also grateful that this is going to sound weird, but I'm grateful that I had to go through this type of situation, because you kind of find out what you're made of. It's easy when you're rolling, right? I mean, come to the ballpark, you're a wild card contender. It's exciting. New manager, new staff. There's Arraez is, batting champion. You got Cy Young. Yuri's coming up. That's easy. when you're getting your butt kicked, you kind of figure out, who you are. Do you really want to do this? Are you finger pointing? Are you deflecting some blame on others? You grow up quick, and I grew up in this seat this year, and you definitely have to make sure that when you're a manager, it's not always going to be winning. There's going to be some highs and lows, and listen, I didn't want to lose a lot of games. That's not where I'm going with this, but I do feel like I needed this also, just selfishly, to figure out exactly who I am. Am I still worthy of the seat? Can I get guys to come in still wanting to come to the clubhouse, still positive, still willing to work, still trying to win, even though we're the record is the record? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, I'm still loving coming to the ballpark. I still love trying to get guys better. I'm still trying to empower guys to become, more leaders. I'm still loving the staff I have, and they're still having a great time, until the end of the game, lately. But I think the willingness and the energy level, all of that stuff, man, I still love being a manager and of the Marlins. Now, having said that, it's not always all this stuff is not in my control. So, if being a manager, also there is, if you don't do the job, they'll find somebody else. I'm very aware of how this seat works. If I wanted to be a first base coach my whole life and take shin guards and pat guys on the butt, I could have done that. But I wanted more of a challenge and more of a voice, and see if I could do it. And I feel like I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I got, and I'm giving everything I have to it last year and this year, and that will never change in whatever position I'm in. Whatever that means for my future. But I think the one thing is like, I'm not 1 foot in, 1 foot out, man. Like, this is. I love being here and trying to get these guys to a position where it's not only good for this year, but for their futures as well, for these players, because they mean a lot to me, and so does the staff. So having said that, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's okay too. I think a lot of managers don't know what's going to happen to them. That's just part of the seat.
I think with that, we can end it there. Skip, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. I know you guys have your hands full. Zach Eflin coming off the IL today, trying to split against the Tampa Bay Rays. Hopefully we can do this again before the end of the year. But thank you very much again for the time. For Kevin, for Eli, for myself, thank you for listening. And as always, go Fish.